ConsumerReports.org.
All right, Paul Hope. Thanks. Get ready for the 4th of July. Meanwhile, still ahead, Democratic lawmakers amping up the rhetoric as they tour detention centers on the southern border.
Is, for all intents and purposes, a prison. They're cages.
Well, is it a prison or not? Border Patrol agent Chris Cabrera is here to set the record straight.
Plus, coming up, we've got David Bossie, Maria Bartiromo, and Candace Owens all here live. Coming up on the program. Stick around.
Open borders. Let MS-13 all over our country.
Tensions running high as protests take over the border.
Why are you stopping the bus?
These people have these children in the bus like criminals. They haven't committed any crimes.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders went to dinner in Lexington, Virginia at a restaurant called the Red Hen. Apparently, the owner came up to her and asked her if she would leave.
There is a cost to being an accomplice to this cruel, deceitful administration.
GOP congressional candidate Katie Arrington is undergoing surgery today after a deadly car accident. The South Carolina congresswoman is in critical but stable condition.
Katie she's a real fighter, and she'll be a fighter in Congress for the people of South Carolina. And we've got our fingers crossed, but we know she's going to pull through.
Disgraced former FBI Director James Comey now says he's so ashamed of America, he thought about posing as a Canadian.
Canada would probably take him. He should apply.
Saskatchewan's nice. You can go there. Yeah.
If you gave me a chance, I would take it. It's a shot in the dark, but I'll make it. Knowing the hope you can't shame me.
A good name, the Clean Bandits. I never heard that.
Do you think Canada could hold Justin and James?
Same time?
Justin from Canada and James from Canada.
Yeah, James Comey.
I don't know. He could either go there legally or sneak over the border.
Do you remember all those celebrities that spoke after the campaign saying that if President Trump if he were going to win, they were going to move to Canada?
Yeah.
I would love a tally today of
A, they didn't
of
do
anyone
it,
who
and B,
went.
they're here just whining and resisting.
It's true.
Yeah,
the resistance. They never went. But he said he was, for some context, he was trying to go to Ireland. James Comey was trying to go to Ireland, I think.
Going through customs.
Going through customs, and he said, I really wish I could just pretend I'm Canadian.
Yeah, he said
because I'm
he's
so
ashamed.
embarrassed and ashamed of my country.
Yeah.
Oh,
no,
good.
there are a lot of people that are embarrassed and ashamed about some of his actions when he was head of the FBI.
Yeah, it might
on
be
both sides of the
more
aisle.
revealing about him than about the president, but that's interesting. We got a big story on immigration.
Big 2 hours still to go, and that is where we begin. It is getting heated at the border and continues to be as Democrats visit a detention center for children.
Yep. Protests this weekend over the separation of immigrant children temporarily and their families.
And where there's controversy, that's where we find Griff Jenkins. He's live in McAllen, Texas, after going toe-to-toe with some of the demonstrators. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, guys. Things really got out of hand here at the processing center in McAllen. About 200 protesters from the League of United Latin American Citizens bussed in from Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. At one point, a bus carrying illegal immigrants was departing, going to another detention center. The protesters surrounded it. A melee ensued, and one of the protesters tried to physically stop the bus himself. I encountered him. Here's what happened. Take a look. Why are you stopping the bus?
This is to make a point that they need to leave children alone. This is not the America that we fought for and died for. My community has fought. There's no reason for them to do this to these children.
These people have these children in the bus like criminals. They haven't committed any crimes.
Do you have a message for President Trump?
We're coming for him in 2020, and we're coming for his Congress in 2018.
Now, earlier in the day, about 25 Democrat lawmakers from D.C. came down, went in, toured the facility, came out, said they found inhumane conditions. But it's interesting, I asked many of them about the fact that this was built in 2014 under President Obama, the same standards in play. But if I could just go back to this protest, something we're learning just this morning, guys, and that is that one of the agents inside here, when that bus was moving, when the melee was going on, was trying to control the crowd, was trying to ensure that he also did not step on a smaller little old lady, and he broke his ankle. His ankle is broken this morning. That as these protesters were shouting, shame, shame, shame on these border agents just carrying out their law to the standards that were set under President Obama and now under President Trump. Guys?
Yeah.
Griff, so you were down there. You said these protesters were bussed in. Are there more plans for more protests, or is this a one-time shot?
So LULAC says they're going to come back at some point in the next week or so. Not sure exactly when. We're not expecting any protesters, but I can tell you that an agent for the actress, Rachel Evan Wood, says that she's going to make an appearance today. We'll see if she shows up. Maybe Hollywood is now going to start coming down.
Oh, here comes
Griff, were any of these buses sent with Democrats and, as you said, some of the Hollywood elite during the Obama years? Because they were faced with a number of the same challenges there, right where you are at the border. Or are we just seeing this now for the first time?
You broke up just a touch, but no, I mean, I think we didn't see any of the outrage back in 2014. And, you know, one point that's lost in all this is that when you are picked up illegally crossing in the field, you are brought here, or if you come and are apprehended claiming asylum, everybody comes to the processing center held for no more than 72 hours. Then they go their separate way. And for a time, we're separated. Now, obviously, the executive order is in place, trying to keep families together. And the DHS, I should add, to the reporting this morning, the DHS says they've reunited about 500 families, and they have plans to reunite the additional 2,000. But talking to agents off camera, they say that this family reunification has unbelievably strained their resources to be on that border enforcing the job they're supposed to do. Guys.
All right. Great job out there, Griff.
Thanks,
Thank
Griff.
you
Good to
so
see you,
much.
Griff. Appreciate it.
It's important to point out that this has been going on for some time, and often the blame goes directly to President Trump. Take the separating the families out of this for a second and talk about where we are with the border and the challenges that we face with immigration. This has gone back for a very, very long time. And so right now you're seeing a lot of the blame even put on the men and the women that are working so hard on the border. Many of them we've had on this show to give us a better sense of what they are seeing. They're just doing their job. They're just doing what they are told to do. It is not an easy one. So President Trump, he is doubling down on that, saying we need to be grateful for the work they are doing on the border. He spoke about that yesterday and then pushed back on Democrats, saying they aren't willing to come to the table. They aren't willing to negotiate with us on figuring out how to move forward on immigration. He calls them obstructionists, as he often does. Here's what he said yesterday.
Our people are actually doing a very good job handling a very difficult situation. But this is a problem that should have been solved years ago. So we're working very hard. The fact is we need more Republicans because the Democrats are obstructionists. Our issue is strong borders, no crime. Their issue is open borders. Let MS-13 all over our country. Immigration, it's the Democrats' fault. We won't get one vote. Remember their word, resist. Resist is their word. Do you remember what our word is? Approve. Get it done. By the way, we want people to come into our country, but we want them to come in for merit, through merit. We need people to come in, but they have to be people that love this country.
Well, Ed, I would say it's everyone's fault. Democrats, sure, but Republicans also can be to blame as well.
Barack Obama, I was covering him. He came to office 2008, 2009, and promised after winning election he would get comprehensive immigration reform by the end, not of his first term, but of his first year in office, 2009. He had a Democratic House, Democratic Senate, did not get it done. Fast forward, we got to put the same pressure on President Trump. He gives that speech yesterday in Nevada and says something's got to get done. And he lays it all out. The visa lottery, all these things are disastrous. Strengthen the border. You know what? The Republicans in the House, they're supposed to have another vote this week. It's on them to get something done.
I can't point the blame at both sides. You've got one person and one party that truly wants to secure the border. This president ran on a wall. He wants a wall. He wants it funded fully. His supporters want it.
One person, not one party. You're wrong about one party.
Not a single Democrat will ever vote for the wall because they
run the House.
But you know you need 60 votes in the Senate, Ed, and they may get something out of the House. There's going to be a vote this week. We'll see what happens.
But they're not getting it through the House. That's my point. And then you can blame it on Chuck Schumer if it goes to the Senate and he kills it. But you can't get it out of the House.
They might get out of the House. And we shall see what happens with the leadership.
They have the majority.
The president asked them. He gave them until March. We are now almost in July.
Of course, this is on the plate of Congress, no doubt. No doubt. But you can't disparage the commitment of this president to want to secure the border.
And no one does.
But I mean, and I think it will hurt.
But it's his own party, is my point. It's not following
It's
through.
his own party on the margins. It's the resistance on the left, of course, overwhelming. They hate the wall so much they'll never give him an inch. They want all these DACA recipients. He's gave them more than they ever asked for. They still won't even come to the table. They won't even have a conversation. The resistance, as we've seen on another topic, is such a fever pitch. They won't even let Trump supporters eat at restaurants.
Well, I think the Democrats feel like they've got the populist support, as they often do, and especially last week with.
They think that.
With
I really do.
No, they do.
So they want MS-13 to be able to come into our country unfettered, and they've got the populist perspective?
I think from what happened last week, they feel that they won that narrative, that you had these terrible images of these families being separated. And in their mind, they're probably saying, hey, we win on this. Yep. Why are we going to go work with Republicans when this only helps us to see Republicans not be able to pass a bill?
That's part of the problem, though, right? Democrats want to win the narrative. How about actually securing the border?
Right.
When are we going to say, hey, it's a victory that we secured the border, that we actually got immigration reform, that we're actually putting merit into this as the president?
That it's not about politics. It's actually what's better for this country.
Not about who wins the narrative.
Well, we talked about the resistance, which is happening in the halls of Congress, but it's also happening in a farm-to-table restaurant in Lexington, Virginia.
$28 pork chops.
$28 pork chops. Our own press secretary, Sarah Sanders, went there with her family and friends on Friday night just to have a quiet, private dinner.
Wait, it says love is the only force, by the way, at the front door at the Red Hen. It talks about love.
Oh, love.
And then they kick out Sarah Sanders.
Well, the owner doubles down on that in her response because she says, I would do it again because we are all about compassion.
Love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into
That is the most classic quote I've ever seen.
Hashtag hypocrisy. That is amazing.
To my point earlier, then why not, if you're the owner, sit across the table from Sarah Sanders? If you want to turn your enemy into your friend, why not have a real
all about
conversation?
love and you kick her out.
So here's what
it's all about love.
Here's what Sarah Sanders tweeted yesterday about it. She said, last night I was told by the owner of Red Hen in Lexington, Virginia to leave because I work for POTUS. And I politely left. Her actions say far more about her than about me. I always do my best to treat people, including those I disagree with, respectfully and will continue to do so. This is not the first time that Sarah Sanders has been heckled by someone or I'm sure pushed in some way. You remember the White House Correspondents' Dinner, there were some terrible jokes about her. She always handles it with class. She didn't get up and leave the Correspondents' Dinner. She sat there and she took it.
This decorum is indicative of the leadership of the left. When you scream impeach 45, when you say that Trump is Hitler, when you raise the conversation, that no wonder regular folks in regular places decide to have their resist moment, and that's what you see. It's ridiculous.
By the way, we checked. There's a law in the books in Virginia where you cannot discriminate in public accommodations, but it does not cover political affiliation. It covers marital status, color, religion, all those important distinctions. So interesting, though, discrimination by party affiliation is fine.
So you go on Yelp at the Red Hen now after yesterday, because that's where you go to see ratings of restaurants and things you want to go to. And right now you can either see a 1-star or 5 stars. There's no in between.
Well, guess what?
That is our country.
Pretty
where
soon,
we are right now.
Pretty soon the Red Hen will be called the Blue Hen.
Ooh, it's true. It shouldn't be the Red Hen. Should they change their name? Email us friends@foxnews.com.
Clever, Ed.
Will you be going there? Will you tip generously? I don't know.
Let us know. Friends@foxnews.com.
Email us. All right, Democrats will move on, amping up the rhetoric as they tour detention centers on the southern border.
Is, for all intents and purposes, a prison. They're cages.
But what are the conditions of these centers really like? We're going to get the real story from the VP of the National Border Patrol Council coming up next.
Yeah, and pool season is here. We've got tips on how to keep your kids safe. We've been talking about the fun part, but it's really, really important to make sure your kids are safe in the water. We have the tips to make sure that
Center for Immigrant Children Saturday, and heating up, as if they can, their rhetoric even more on the issue.
Border Patrol and all of the agents are doing their jobs, but they are a criminal law enforcement agency. They have treated some of these children and families as you would treat a criminal. Is, for all intents and purposes, a prison. They're cages.
But what are the conditions of these centers really like? Here to respond, the Vice President for the National Border Patrol Council and Border Patrol Agent Chris Cabrera. Chris, good to have you on with us this morning.
Good morning.
I know you've got your hands full, and there is a lot of false narratives out there, and it's so important to get your perspective on this. You heard it there from that Democratic lawmaker saying that you work for a criminal agency, and these children, they are being treated like criminals. Help us better understand what you're saying.
You know, I think nothing could be farther from the truth. I think it's disgusting what she's saying. And I mean, she's been in office for a while. I know she was here in 2014 as far as being a representative, and I don't recall her having a problem then. All of a sudden now it's an issue. And if she honestly believes this is a prison, then I think she's more detached from the American people than we previously thought.
Chris, give us the ground truth. You know these guys inside these facilities doing the best they can in tough situations. I'm sure you see them as opposite of criminals. How are they doing?
You know, our agents are really good people. They're members of this community, do a lot of volunteer work, and for somebody to come in and just bash them like that for their own political gain that's terrible.
Are children
our guys
treated
do the best
differently?
they can. Yeah.
What do you do to accommodate younger kids when you do have them in your care?
You know, we always, obviously, you handle them like they're children. You know, we make sure that they're comfortable. We try and entertain them the best we can. They have a good space out there to run around inside the building and play. They have access to showers, obviously, restroom facilities, snacks. They have cartoons on 24 hours, or not 24 hours a day, but whenever they want to watch. So they're treated rather well. At the end of the day, it is a holding facility, but they're treated, I mean, it's, as far as what you're, you know, in a situation like this, it's the best it can get.
Yeah. So for agents on the border, something that you do every day, what is the biggest challenge that you face right now?
Right now, you know, I think the biggest thing we're having, you know, it's always been a manpower issue, and with so many of our agents having to come in and not just deal with the processing, but now having to deal with security from protesters, and then having to deal with some of these celebrities, you know, pumping up the public and, you know, calling our agents Nazis and demons. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's just something we shouldn't have to deal with. We got enough on our plate trying to make sure that everything's taken care of and people are safe that are in our care. And now we're getting bashed from the, you know, certain members of the public.
Briefly, do you have concerns about that rhetoric and what it could happen to officers because of it?
I do. It's a very real concern. You know, ever since I've been a Border Patrol agent, we've received threats from, you know, criminal types, cartel types, stuff like that. And it's just part of the job. But to take it from American citizens, and we've had people out there videotaping our agents when they leave the station. We've had agents that have been followed in their vehicles, guys that have been heckled and harassed inside of restaurants or gas stations. And it's just a matter of time before one of these nut jobs tries to take action. And at that point, you know, unfortunately, somebody will get hurt, and then hopefully people will wake up and realize this is not proper behavior.
Chris Cabero, just doing your job out there. Thank you for
Thank you for your service, sir.
And
Appreciate
thank you for providing that perspective.
Thank
it's an
you.
important one.
You got it. Well, MSNBC's Donnie Deutsch attacking Trump supporters.
If you vote for Trump, then you, the voter, you, not Donald Trump, are standing at the border like Nazis, going, you here, you here.
Wow. But will this rhetoric, will it help or hurt the Democratic headlines for you? We begin with a Fox News alert. 2 police officers ambushed in an overnight shootout. Emergency personnel were called to a condominium near San Diego for reports of smoke. A gunman dressed in body armor shot at authorities through a wall. That is according to local reports there. One officer took a life-threatening gunshot to the chest while the other was hit in the shoulder and is expected to be okay. The gunman is now dead, but still unclear if he died from police or shot himself. And GOP congressional candidate Katie Arrington is undergoing surgery this morning after a car accident. The South Carolina lawmaker is in critical but stable condition. Governor Henry McMaster joined us earlier on the show, sharing his condolences.
We're pulling for Katie. Katie she's a real fighter, and she'll be a fighter in Congress for the people of South Carolina. And we've got our fingers crossed, but we know she's going to pull through.
Arrington recently beat incumbent South Carolina Representative Mark Sanford in the state's GOP primary. Wishing the best for her.
Absolutely.
Ed.
Thanks, Abby. Another day, another accusation of racism from some on the left.
I think it's important to separate Trump supporters from Republicans. It's a fear of immigrants. It's a fear of people of color.
The thing that brought him to national prominence in the political stage was a racist appeal.
If you vote for Trump, you're the bad guy. You, the voter, you, not Donald Trump, are standing at the border like Nazis, going, you here, you here.
Like Nazis. So is that the tactic Democrats think will help them win the midterms? Here to debate, former Trump deputy campaign manager, Fox News contributor, author of Let Trump Be Trump, David Bossie, and Democratic strategist Joel Payne. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
David, I remember maybe a simpler time in American politics where the term Nazi was not thrown around like this.
Ed, this is quite honestly disgusting. The left has lost their minds. When you used to use the word Hitler in comparison in politics or Nazis in politics, you got run out of the public square and you got run out for a reason. There's no place for it. You're demeaning what happened in World War II to the world and to the Jewish people. The Holocaust was real, and these people have lost their ever-picking minds. So I don't know. They tried this tactic in 2016, Ed. Look, the basket of deplorables, Hillary Clinton's racist, xenophobic, Islamophobic, all of that rant, the screed she went on. They tried this in 2016 against President Trump. It failed. The American people know they are good and decent people, and they are offended, quite honestly, by this rhetoric. The left has lost their minds, and they have nothing else to offer but anger and hatred.
So if it's offensive, Joel, why do you think it's going to work?
Well, Ed, you said a simpler time. I remember a simpler time when we didn't have a president who was courting white supremacists from the White House. I mean, you look at what happened in Charlottesville last year.
How about a simpler time when cops weren't the targets?
Ed, I'd love to finish my point. Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thanks, David. I remember a simpler time when the president didn't court white supremacists. I remember when you didn't have a Fox News contributor posting a picture, an ominous-looking picture of Hispanic people, and trying to tie that to Nancy Pelosi.
You're talking about Mike Huckabee, I understand from your notes.
And suggest that she likes MS-13. Just 10 minutes ago, I heard one of your co-hosts.
Well, she did. Hang on one second. I'm not going to. She did defend MS-13.
I heard one of your co-hosts say that Democrats wanted unfettered access for MS-13 to America.
Let's separate out that point, Joel, because I don't want to keep interrupting you. When the president called MS-13 animals, Nancy Pelosi said, these are all of God's children. True?
Ed,
It's exactly what she said.
That's a nonsense way to tie that together. Ed,
that's what she said. I'm quoting.
No, it's not nonsense. Look, these people, you and your people.
That's not what Nancy
David
Pelosi
first.
meant.
David. David and then Joel.
All right, great. I guess I can't finish
No. Joel, finish your point, Joel. Joel,
go ahead.
Joel, finish your point.
Go ahead, David. Go ahead.
This guy's going to whine and cry, and it's unbelievable. Okay, we're done with this. You guys, the Democratic Party, are so angry and hate-filled towards the Border Patrol agents, towards police officers, towards ICE agents. You know what? We're done with this. The American people recognize what the Democrat Party has become. They've become Robert De Niro and Peter Fonda, and they have become nothing more than angry and hate-filled. They hate this president more than they love this country, and it's dangerous.
You made your point. Joel, go ahead.
Yeah, I just love to let the people watch. This is the president's deputy campaign manager. This is the type of hate-filled screed that you saw in 2016.
This is honesty.
By the way, this is why, by the way, Democrats are going to win this time around.
Please. You tried this in 2016 and you lost.
Let Joel make his point.
What 2 years of Trumpism looks like, and it looks like Charlottesville. It looks like calling judges of Mexican descent not being able to make judicial decisions because they're of a certain descent. It's called attacking the Khan family. People have seen what this president's about.
But Joel,
they've seen what his agenda is, and
if the president said all these things he said, and you don't like his tweets, do you think two wrongs make a right? So then you're going to double down?
It's not about two wrongs making a right. You started this segment saying that progressives and Democrats and the left are attacking the president, calling him a racist. No, you're just calling him out. Listen, you don't have to be a golden retriever to hear all the dog whistles coming out of the White House these days. And from my friend David over here.
Final point, David. All right, you said that about David. David,
Michael Hayden posted a picture of Auschwitz. Donnie Deutsch is talking.
That liberal Michael Hayden. Yeah, that screaming liberal Michael Hayden.
You're out of your cotton-picking mind.
Cotton-picking mind? Brother, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. I got some relatives who pick cotton.
Okay.
And I'm not going to allow you to attack me like that on TV. I'm not out of my cotton-picking mind.
You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind.
He said you're out of your mind. Gentlemen, we're going to leave it right there.
This is ridiculous. This is what's gone on in America. This is what we're about.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
This is
Let's
outrageous.
end it on a civil note. I appreciate you both coming in. Have a wonderful Sunday with your families.
Happy Sunday.
Thank you, guys. David, Joel, thank you. North Korea reportedly getting rid of its anti-U.S. propaganda. Is this more proof of a step toward peace? An important story. Plus, Sarah Sanders kicked out of a restaurant just because she works for the president. And Paul Ryan slammed by Seth Rogen because he asked for a picture. So can faith help bring back a loving society despite political views? Our religion panel is here to weigh in next. All right. And obviously, we don't appreciate some of the language back and forth, but we're going to go to David Bossie used a phrase that clearly offended Joel Payne and offended many others. I don't know what David meant by it, what went back and forth between the two of them. I've known David a long time. I'll let him address exactly what he said, but I want to make clear that Fox News and this show myself, we don't agree with that particular phrase. It was obviously offensive. And these debates get fiery. That's unfortunate. We like to have honest and spirited debates, but not phrases like that, obviously. And so I will just leave it at that, Abby.
Thank you so much, Ed. All right, well, we were all taught the golden rule as children: treat others as you would like to be treated. But as the divisiveness in our country heats up, have we lost sight of this? Take, for instance, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders being kicked out of a restaurant because she works for President Trump. Also, actor Seth Rogen bragging about refusing to take a photo with Speaker Paul Ryan. So can faith help bring society back to where we can respect each other while also disagreeing on politics? Let's ask our religion panel: Rabbi Evan Moffick, Pastor Ron Lewis, Father Gerald Murray, and Dr. Tawfiq Hamid is an Islamic scholar. I'm really looking forward to this panel and this discussion because I think it is something that we all need to hear today. I'll start with you, Pastor. It seems like just those were a couple examples that I gave off the top here, but we are seeing this happen all too often. We have lost so much of civility and respect in this country. Where do we go from here?
I think the starting point is we go on our knees and we ask God to forgive us for the polarization, the divisiveness, and the lack of civility, as you just mentioned. What we just saw is another example of what goes on when we don't operate out of the principles of the golden rule, which is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So that's the heart of where we are in the faith community, is that by God's grace, we pull together based around our common interests and the call of God in our lives to serve the public with a good spirit and a good heart.
Yeah. Rabbi, we lost one of the best this week in media, Charles Krauthammer. And something that he was so good at was being able to disagree, being able to have back and forth and arguments, but he respected and he tried to understand where that other person was coming from. What can we learn from him?
Oh, so much we can learn from Charles. One of the things I most admired about him was that he looked into the deeper issues at play. He wasn't driven only by the headlines. He was driven by the deeper ideals and values that we hold as a country. And one of those is simply habits of the heart, relating with people that are different from us. You know, I conducted a wedding yesterday, and I said to the bride and groom, in your relationship, the little things are the big things. And I think that's true in a society. If we can't share a meal together, if we can't take a picture together and break bread together and have a conversation together, we've lost some of the deepest elements that connect us to one another. Yeah. And I think Charles Krauthammer was aware of those elements, and he knew how important they were, and that they're in fact more important than the headlines. So I agree with the pastor that we really need a shift in how we see others, a shift in civility. In Judaism, we call this darchei shalom, which means ways of peace. A society needs ways of peace so that we can get along with each other and be the best people we can be.
That's really well said. Father Murray, what do you make about what played out on Friday night, Sarah Sanders being kicked out of that restaurant? I imagine there are people in this country that may not agree with President Trump, but saw that happen and said, you know what, we don't need to do this. This is not who we are as Americans.
Right, Abby. This is part of the problem of demonizing your political opponent or demonizing someone that to whom you don't agree with. This is wrong. Jesus said that we should love one another. And in a society, if we want to have peace and harmony, love has to express itself in courtesy, politeness. If you run a restaurant, you know, you don't issue invitations to your friends only to come. A restaurant's a public accommodation. People have a right to go there. And by receiving people into your restaurant, you have a business relationship, but you have something even more, a human relationship. You're offering your services, and you want to create an atmosphere where people can have a good meal and discuss things. Now, why is it that only someone like Sarah Sanders is thrown out? What about other people who come to that restaurant? Were they treated that way? I really doubt it. I think that, I'll give it this. The owner of the restaurant made a mistake. I think she probably regrets it now. But if she doesn't, she should, because Sarah deserves as much respect as anybody who comes through the doors.
Yeah. And she handled it with a lot of grace. Dr. Hamid, why are we seeing this happen? Is it because so many people are living in their own cul-de-sacs that they're only surrounding themselves and thinking with people that live like them, that have the same understandings as them? We're not engaging with folks that might be different than who we are, that might have different backgrounds, might have different way of thinking about life.
Absolutely. It has a strong base in the inability of people to see that we both can see the same thing from different angles, and we will see completely different pictures, yet this does not mean I am wrong or you are wrong. We both can be correct. You just see the thing from a different angle. And I think, for example, let me give you a very simple example. That owner of the restaurant who kicked Sarah Sanders outside of it, he doesn't know, for example, that from a completely different angle of view, and I'm talking here from the angle of someone from the Middle East. Originally, I'm an American citizen, but originally from the Middle East. I can tell this person clearly, I see Donald Trump as a second Abraham Lincoln. The reason is simple. During Obama administration and his policies led to the creation of ISIS, the creation of slave markets, and women were sold, raped in the streets. After President Trump came to power, ISIS was defeated militarily. No longer slave markets, no longer rape for women at this magnitude. And for this reason, thousands of women have been saved from slavery there. So I just want to show that how people, he sees it from one angle. He doesn't like Donald Trump. I like him because I see him as a person who saved many people there. So I think the lack of the ability or our inability to see that, you can see the same thing, but from a different angle. And I start to learn how to respect your views. I think as long as we can't reach this level of understanding, we are having a problem of such kind of things.
Yeah, it is a message that we all need to hear this morning. Rabbi, Pastor, Father, Doctor, thank you so much for being with us and reminding us of what this country was founded on and what we are capable of being if we just try our best to be good people. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Abby.
All right, have a good Sunday.
Thank you.
I know I needed that. All right, North Korea reportedly getting rid of its anti-U.S. propaganda. Is this more proof of a step toward peace? Plus, have you seen this video? A toddler climbing up a safety ladder meant to keep kids out of the pool. We've got tips on how to keep your kids safe in the water this summer. That is just ahead. And you know his hit song, That's What I Love About Sunday. But did you know country legend Craig Morgan served in the Army? He's now being honored by the U.S. Army, and he is joining us live next hour. You don't want to miss it. Stick with us.
Go home into your blue jeans. Have some chicken and some baked beans.
What should we do?
Call the police.
Some quick headlines for you. Eggo waffle sales are dwindling as the show Stranger Things remains on hiatus. Its lead character, Eleven, loves the waffles. New York Daily News reporting that Kellogg saw a 14% boost in sales. But now as viewers wait for season 3, growth has slowed to less than 2%. Yikes. And Facebook wants to help users re-engage into the real world. The tech giant is working on a tool to help manage time spent on the social media platform. According to TechCrunch report, the feature will allow users to track how much they spend on the app and mute Facebook notifications.
All right, Abby, thanks. Right. Well, President Trump continues to tout his successful meeting with the North Korean leader.
I met Kim Jong-un, and we had a great meeting, great chemistry. We got along really well. Now we can have something where everybody is going to live in peace for a long period of time, and there will be denuclearization. So that's the real story.
Is getting rid of its anti-U.S. propaganda. Believe that when you actually see it. And the U.S. military prepares to receive the remains of U.S. servicemen, which is very, very important. And so we wonder, is this proof that peace is actually on the horizon? Here to weigh in is an expert that we've had before, Michael Malice. He's the author of Dear Reader, the unauthorized autobiography of Kim Jong-il. I love the title of the book, first of all, Dear Reader instead of Leader.
Yes.
What's your sense? I mean, the president is making the case that peace is at hand, and his critics, they don't want to give him a victory no matter what, even if peace may be at hand.
Sure, and I think if they are starting to take down the anti-U.S. propaganda, this would be a major step toward peace, because hatred of Americans is so ingrained into North Korean ideology and their sense of history. For them, they teach the kids that since the 1860s, when we sent USS General Sherman there, we've been waiting to conquer Korea and make that our beachhead for world domination. And we started the Korean War that the great leader Kim Il-sung won. So this is inherent to their thinking. So if they're backing down on this, this is a huge 180.
We forget how Kim Jong-un couldn't just say, okay, we're at peace with the Americans now, because of decades of propaganda pumped into the minds of generations to hate us with a certain worldview. So by undoing or unwinding that propaganda, he could be setting the stage to actually do something meaningful.
Let me tell you how much work it would have to be. For example, we're not referred to as Americans in their textbooks. We're referred to as slurs like U.S. imperialists or Yank devils. So in their math classes, it would say something like, if I kill 10 U.S. imperialists every day, how many can I kill in a week? So it's and the thing is, we're regarded as basically the equivalent of Nazis over there. It's not something that if we fought a war and we won. They talk about atrocities that we committed during the Korean War. There's one story in Sinchon where there's a museum, the Sinchon Massacre, where we took women, separated them from their kids, put them in separate warehouses, set them on fire, and threw grenades in to make sure nothing's there. You can go see those warehouses where scrawled on the walls are, "The Americans are enemies, please remember us." So again, we are regarded not just as, someone who lost the war, but people who are inherently evil. And the caricatures are very similar to Nazi characters. We have these huge noses, pot bellies, and are regarded as basically subhuman.
Last point, people have not given the president credit, again, on another point of this, which is bringing the remains home of a lot of the servicemen we lost in the Korean War. Decades later, their families have been waiting to have some sort of closure.
Yes.
Seems like a big step.
It is, because we talk a lot about the Vietnam War on the left and the World War II, those narratives. The Korean War is often rightly described as the forgotten war, because there's no real payoff, there's no story. So many of the servicemen and their families have not had that closure. It's so much part of North Korean history, we tend to not discuss it as much. So thankfully, some of these people will have finally closure in their lives.
So as we look at the tea leaves, are we more likely that denuclearization happens a week after this meeting, or less likely?
If they're taking down the anti-U.S. propaganda, that's the biggest step possible towards saying that there's going to be peace.
All right. Michael Malice, you know of what you speak. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. All right. Well, it is a scary video for any parent to watch. A toddler climbing up a safety ladder meant to keep kids out of the pool. Coming up next, we have some advice on how to keep your kids safe in the water this summer.
Serious issue. Plus, Kirsten Nielsen and Sarah Sanders both forced out of restaurants this week. So are women on the right who work for the president treated more unfairly than those on the left? We're going to debate it next hour.